But because the hippocampus and the amygdala hijack the rest of your brain, the frontal portion of your brain is not being used. Hi, my name is Kayla Rochelle. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And today I wanted to share with you a couple of tips on how you can improve coming out of your trauma response. But we first have to understand what is happening in the brain. If you've ever asked yourself, why do I keep having this memory of something that I don't even want to think about? Why do I keep thinking about something that is harmful or disturbing? Can't I just block it out of my mind? If you found yourself struggling with some of those same questions, I want to help you today on what you can do to improve what is happening in your brain as a result of trauma experiences. Now first, I'm going to geek out on you just a little bit. I want to explain to you what is happening in the brain. When a person experiences a threat, our internal alarm system is going to start going off. This is the amygdala. The amygdala is responsible for processing emotions and thoughts. The amygdala's main job is to let you know when there is a threat approaching. The fight, flight, freeze response is housed in the amygdala. This is the part of the brain that tells you, look out, run, fight, whatever it is that is your natural response to a threat. The amygdala is the part of the brain that's going to initiate that response. Once you're in survival mode, this is the part of the body where naturally your body gets flooded with cortisol, gets flooded with oxygen, blood flows from other parts of your body to the major muscle groups. Your body is going to naturally work for you to help you engage in survival mode. Naturally, what is supposed to happen after is that a person's parasympathetic nervous system is going to be kicking in. This is the rest and digest stage of what happens after coming out of a threat. Your body naturally comes to a slow. Your body starts to feel calm. With a person who experiences trauma, this natural phenomenon is not so simple. A person can actually get stuck in survival mode, which is why people experience disruptive thoughts, remember memories that are unwanted, think intrusive thoughts, or other trauma symptoms. When a person experiences trauma consistently, the amygdala actually grows to be more sensitive. This basically means that any level of threat is going to cause the amygdala to experience kind of this knee-jerk reaction to what is perceived as a threat. Have you ever accidentally woken up on the wrong day and thought that it was time to do what it is that you normally do? Either go to work or maybe go to school, and you come to realize it's Saturday morning and you don't work or go to school on a Saturday? That feeling is devastating. The amygdala is overworked and it's hypersensitive when a person experiences ongoing or repeated trauma. Now, the amygdala is kind of like two peas in a pod with a hippocampus. They're connected and they feed off of each other. Where the amygdala is responsible for connecting memories with emotions, the hippocampus is responsible for processing emotions and memories. But what happens when a person who has experienced ongoing and repeated trauma, the hippocampus is actually flooded with stress hormones like cortisol? That's a bad thing, because what ends up happening to the hippocampus is that it becomes overrun and flooded with cortisol that the receptors cannot receive other information. When you think about things that you no longer use, what do? You throw it away. Garbage, right? It becomes garbage. This is exactly what the brain is inclined to do. When nerve cells are not being used, they simply just die because they're unused, which causes the hippocampus to shrink. Remember when I was saying that the hippocampus is responsible for processing memories and emotions? This part of the brain is exactly why a person starts to experience unwanted thoughts, unwanted memories, or intrusive thoughts at random, right? A person's brain in this region starts to misfire. And then when a person starts to experience unwanted memories or unwanted thoughts, it is going to re-trigger the amygdala, which then serves as this vicious cycle of a trauma response. A person then gets stuck in survival mode. Then this starts to lead into questions about what happens to the rest of the brain. Why isn't the rest of the brain working for you? The prefrontal cortex is supposed to be in charge of using reason and logic. It's supposed to help you make sense of everything that's happening. But because the hippocampus and the amygdala hijack the rest of your brain, the frontal portion of your brain is not being used. What happens again to things that are not being used? No. Not in this situation, not this time. We can't simply just, an entire region of our brain is not going to die off. That was probably not fun of a joke. I'm sorry. Instead, what tends to happen is neural pathways that are not being used in that region will actually start to shrink. This is why the frontal cortex, the region of our brain responsible for logic, reasoning, understanding, that part of our brain is not going to be used. So how do we get out of it? I'm glad you asked. This is the reason why I've purposed this video. We can help our brain heal. I outlined a sequence of events that tends to happen. You have a threat, and then your body gets sent into survival mode. This is the amygdala at work. And then the hippocampus works hand in hand with the amygdala and tries to process and make sense of these unwanted memories and the emotions. But then because the hippocampus has shrunken in size or essentially become sort of dysfunctional, it only creates this vicious cycle of a trauma response. And then it leads to a lack of use in the prefrontal cortex. But instead, you can help heal the brain if you work backwards. So because the frontal lobe is the region that starts to shut down, but what if you work to increase the function of the prefrontal cortex? This would mean that you'd practice exercises like mindfulness skills. Can you identify your narrative? Every person tells themselves a story about their experience. Can you work to identify what it is that you were telling yourself as a result of your experience? This could mean journaling your thoughts so that you're intentional and aware of what it is that you're thinking, how you're feeling. These are active exercises that involve the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's responsible for logic and reasoning. And so by incorporating mindfulness skills, you're intentional about identifying what is happening in your thought life. And then after the prefrontal cortex, can you then jump on over to help the hippocampus? This would mean that you help your brain distinguish the past from the present. Can you practice some grounding techniques? Can you help your hippocampus know that you're in the here and now and not in the threat from the past? Another grounding technique that you can try is just practicing affirmations. Can you learn how to empower who you are today instead of the vulnerable person that experienced trauma from the past? What are some of those affirmations and what would they sound like? Can you recite some of those things to yourself? And lastly, one way to help the amygdala is to strengthen the parasympathetic nervous system. Practical exercises that you can practice on a daily basis include exercise. Spending at minimum 20 minutes of exercise per day can help regulate what is happening in the body. Remember, trauma is stored in the body. If you allow your body to experience physiological changes that are separate from a trauma response, your body is going to begin to learn how to recognize that muscle tension during exercise does not equate a trauma response. Living a balanced diet is also going to be beneficial to you. Giving your body natural energy and a natural source of clean eating, having a balanced diet will give your body the most optimal amount of energy. Practicing sleep hygiene, getting into the routine of winding yourself down and promoting in any way that you can to boost your sleep hygiene is going to be beneficial. I'll post a link in the description of practical tips and tricks that you can do to boost sleep hygiene. but it is one crucial way to help improve your parasympathetic nervous system. If you've experienced trauma in your past and you want to learn a helpful tip or helpful skill, leave some of your questions in the comment section. I'll be sure to respond there. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. If you got any benefit or any like out of today's video, be sure to hit that like button, share this video, and be sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.